Most people walk through life with a kind of emotional blindfold on. They move from one conversation to the next, from one interaction to another, wondering why they feel drained, overlooked, misunderstood, or alone. They replay encounters in their minds, dissecting what they should have said or noticed and what they missed entirely. And beneath all this lies a deep, aching question. Why can't I connect the way others seem to? I've lived that question myself. I've stood in crowds and felt invisible. I've left meetings unsure whether I impressed or irritated, and I've misread silences as rejection and smiles as sincerity when they were not. I've trusted too quickly or not at all, and for years I believed it was just who I was. Awkward, too sensitive, or not charismatic enough. I believed social grace was a gift others were born with, and I simply hadn't received it. But here is the truth. Social intelligence is not a mystery or a birthright. It is a skill, and like any skill, it can be learned, refined, and eventually mastered. The problem is that no one teaches us how. We're taught math and grammar, and how to drive a car and fill out a form, but no one shows us how to truly see people or hear beyond their words. No one explains how to adjust ourselves in real time to respond with empathy instead of ego and curiosity instead of defensiveness. This is the heart of social intelligence, the ability to read the invisible and respond with intention. This book is not about being liked or about manipulation or persuasion. It's about becoming deeply attuned to yourself and to the energy beneath the surface. It's about training your internal compass so that you can navigate any room and any relationship with clarity and calm power. Because when you master the art of reading and responding to people, you unlock doors you didn't even know were there. Doors to influence, intimacy, leadership, and peace. Social intelligence is not about talking more. It is about noticing more. It is the quiet confidence of someone who can walk into chaos and remain composed. It's the subtle skill of someone who knows when to speak, when to pause, and when to simply listen. It is the intuition of knowing what someone needs, even if they can't say it, and the power to resolve conflict before it erupts. This mastery begins with self-awareness. You can't read others if you're deaf to your own emotional noise. You can't respond wisely if you're ruled by insecurity or impulse. You must first learn the language of your own patterns, fears, and desires. Only then can you become an interpreter of others. This isn't about faking it. It's about aligning your internal world so that your external actions carry weight. Your presence is your power, and presence begins within. Every human being is broadcasting constantly. Every face, every gesture, and every delay is a message. Most people don't know how to tune into the right frequency. They hear the words but miss the meaning, see the smile but not the strain, and feel the tension but dismiss it as their own. The socially intelligent learn to listen with their eyes and feel with their ears. They read the moment like a seasoned traveler reads a map, noticing not just where they are, but where others are trying to go. But none of this works if you approach people with judgment. You must replace evaluation with observation. People are not puzzles to solve. They are stories to understand. Every defensive reaction, every boastful claim, and every sarcastic joke has a root. When you begin to see people not as problems but as patterns, everything changes. You develop compassion without being naive, and you become assertive without being aggressive. You're no longer thrown off by emotion but guided by it. This journey will change how you walk into every room. It will shift how you see conflict, attraction, rejection, and power. You'll begin to notice the energy behind the words, the unsaid beneath the said. And with that awareness, you will no longer feel behind. You will be ahead. You will be awake in a world of distraction. This is not a book of tricks. It is a book of truth and a path back to presence, perception, and profound connection. If you're willing to read not just these words, but the spaces between them, you will leave this journey with more than skill. You will leave with soul. The language beneath words. Listening to the unsaid. A man once said something to me that changed the way I listen forever. People say things they don't mean, and they mean things they don't say. This truth haunted me for years because I had no idea how to apply it. How do you listen to someone's unspoken needs when all they give you are words layered with ego, pain, or confusion? The answer came to me one evening at a cafe. A couple sat at the table beside me, their conversation quiet and mechanical. He was explaining his long workday, and she was nodding politely. He cracked a joke and she smiled, but just for a moment her eyes drifted down as he laughed. Her fingers tightened around her mug, and her smile lingered just a little too long. The unspoken story was all there. She was lonely, aching to be seen, but didn't know how to ask without sounding needy. And he had no idea. He was present in proximity, but not in presence. Most people make this mistake. They assume that being in the same room means they are sharing an experience, but connection is not about location. It's about resonance. It's about how deeply you feel someone's energy, and how honestly you allow them to feel yours. That level of connection requires a new kind of listening, not the kind where you wait for your turn to speak, but the kind where you hear the unsaid and feel the unseen. True listening is a form of love. It says, "You are worth my full attention." To listen like that, you must learn the language beneath the words. You must read facial micro-expressions, the flicker of sadness that comes before a forced laugh, the tension in the jaw that hides resentment, or the way someone avoids eye contact, not out of disrespect but out of shame. These small signals are not noise. They are the story. The words are often a mask, but the body never lies. People say "I'm fine" when they're fractured, or "it doesn't matter" when it matters deeply. Unless you learn to listen beyond the literal, you will always miss the truth underneath. This is where social intelligence becomes emotional intelligence in action. It's no longer about decoding people like a puzzle. It's about sensing them like music. You don't ask a song what it means. You feel it. You let it pass through you and respond to its rhythm, tone, and tension. The three layers of any communication are the words, the emotion behind them, and the unmet need driving the emotion. Most people only engage with the first, but masters tune into all three. When someone says, "You never listen," they're not just criticizing. They're expressing frustration. But the root is a feeling of invisibility. If you meet the need, you resolve the emotion and the words stop being weapons. Not everyone has the vocabulary for their feelings. A child who says, "You never play with me," is not angry. They are lonely. A partner who says, "You're always on your phone," is not jealous. They are longing to be seen. If you only hear the words, you will defend. If you hear the emotion, you will empathize. If you sense the need, you will transform the moment. Transformation happens when someone feels understood without needing to explain. That's the deepest gift you can offer. And to give it, you must be quiet enough within yourself to notice. You must drop the need to fix, to impress, or to be right. Listening is not a strategy. It's a sacred posture that requires stillness and humility. I once met a great leader who never spoke the most in a room, but everyone listened when he did. He would lean in and hold your gaze, and you felt like the only person that mattered. In that stillness, people told him everything. Truths they had never spoken and regrets they had buried for years. He didn't interrupt or solve. He simply held space, and in that space, people healed. You can be that person. You don't need a title. You need attention. You need to remember that every person is a universe disguised as a body, and most are walking around hoping someone will ask for a tour. You don't need to understand everything about them. Just be curious enough to care. The next time someone speaks, resist the urge to formulate a response. Just listen. Watch their face, feel their pace. Ask yourself, what are they trying to say that they don't know how to say? Even the attempt to listen this way will deepen your presence. And presence is what people remember long after the conversation ends. Eventually, you will notice something magical. People will begin to open up around you because they feel safe. You are no longer reacting. You are reflecting. You are no longer judging. You are joining. And in a world full of noise, that kind of presence is magnetic. It draws truth to the surface and invites depth, and it heals. This isn't just a skill, it's a way of being. And once you embrace it, you'll never go back to shallow listening again because you will have heard the language beneath the words. You've experienced it before. You can walk into a room and feel the atmosphere before a single word is spoken. The air is either heavy or light, tense or warm. You don't hear it, but you feel it. This is the mystery of energy, and the most socially intelligent people are masters at reading it. Most people get stuck in unfulfilling relationships and disconnected friendships because they're too focused on what people show and are completely unaware of the energy people send. When someone is truly present with you, their gaze doesn't flicker, and they lean in out of genuine curiosity, not politeness. They aren't listening to respond. They're listening to receive. This stillness creates a space where you feel safe and your thoughts unfold more naturally, because their presence becomes a container for your truth. This is why socially intelligent people often speak less. But when they do, their words land with weight, because they're born from deep presence, not rushed thoughts. Their silence doesn't feel like an absence. It feels like attention. The reason people get stuck in shallow conversations is that they're not really listening. They're scanning. They're scanning for when to interject, for flaws in an argument, or for their next witty comment. This scanning creates an energetic disconnection that the other person feels, causing them to hold back. The conversation becomes mechanical, with no resonance, just noise. Presence repairs this by slowing everything down and creating space for silence, thought, and breath. In that space, authenticity emerges, and people share things they didn't plan to, because your presence becomes a mirror for their deeper self. The quality of your presence shapes the quality of their expression. If you are distracted, they will withhold. If you are judgmental, they will perform. But if you are present, they will reveal their true selves, and in that revelation, real connection is born. This is why presence is also your greatest filter. When you're fully present, you notice who is not, and you sense when a smile is just a performance. To cultivate this level of presence, you must first master your internal noise. Most people are not present because their minds are busy with self-evaluation. Do they like me? Am I saying this right? The remedy is simple. Breathe, return to your breath, and drop into your body. You must also release the pressure to perform. You don't need to impress to connect. You just need to show up fully and completely. People crave presence more than perfection, and they crave being heard more than being dazzled. I once had a conversation with a man who had nothing to prove. When I gave him my usual "I'm doing well" response, he paused, looked at me gently, and said, "That's the answer you give everyone. But how are you?" In that moment, I felt safe and told him the truth, that I was tired and scared. He simply said, "Thank you for trusting me with the truth." That conversation, which only lasted 10 minutes, was more memorable than some relationships that lasted years, because presence turns time into eternity. When you're truly with someone, even briefly, the moment expands, lingers, and heals. You can start this practice today. The next time someone speaks to you, resist the urge to fix or to relate it back to yourself. Just be with them and let their words land. Say things like, "That sounds really important," or "I can feel how much that means to you." Watch what happens. You'll see people soften, their stories deepen, and trust awaken. Conversational presence is a powerful gift that reminds people they are not alone, and that connection is built not by brilliance, but by simply being. Most people confuse influence with control, believing that to influence someone means to change them, override their will, or direct their decisions. But real influence doesn't violate, it invites. It creates such clarity, calm, and presence that others naturally adjust, not out of fear or manipulation, but out of resonance. You become the tuning fork, and their nervous system aligns itself without force. That is true mastery. Think of a candle in a dark room. It doesn't need to shout or convince anyone to notice it. It simply glows. And because it glows, others can see not just the candle but everything else more clearly. This is what the subtly influential person does. They bring light, not noise. They bring steadiness, not spectacle. And that light helps others see not just the situation, but also themselves. So why do some people create peace by entering a room, while others create tension without saying a word? It's not charisma or charm. It's the quiet integrity of their presence. They have nothing to prove. They don't chase approval. They are not secretly angry or desperate beneath a smile. Their presence is clean and unpolluted by hidden agendas. And because of that, people feel safe around them, even if they disagree. Subtle influence begins the moment you stop trying to impress and start learning how to impact without pressure. This means asking better questions instead of making strong points. It means leading with curiosity instead of conclusions. It means holding silence until the truth emerges instead of rushing to fill the gap with your opinion. When you do that, people begin to trust your presence even if they don't yet understand your perspective. Think of the people who have most influenced your life. They may not have shouted or demanded, but they saw something in you. They said something at the right moment. They were calm when you were in chaos. They believed when you doubted. That is subtle influence. It's not what they did. It's who they were in the moment you needed them most. Social intelligence is not just about how well you read people. It's about how responsibly you respond to what you see. If someone is defensive, do you escalate? Or do you lower your tone and posture to match what they need, not what your ego wants? If someone is confused, do you over-explain to feel smart? Or do you simplify and make space for them to find their own understanding? The subtly influential are not reactive. They are intentional. Every word they speak is chosen, not thrown. Every gesture is conscious, not compulsive. They understand the energy in a conversation and use it wisely, redirecting its flow with precision, not force. One of the most powerful things you can do in a conversation is pause. That pause, when timed correctly, does more than any speech. It creates space for reflection, recognition, and adjustment. It says, I am not here to dominate this exchange. I am here to shape it gently. This kind of presence creates shifts you cannot manufacture with tactics. I once watched a team leader walk into a meeting where two top employees were in conflict. The tension was thick, and everyone expected him to intervene. But he didn't, he waited. And when the room fell silent, he looked at each one and said, Can I ask what you are both afraid of losing right now? That one question changed everything. It led to tears, then apologies, then collaboration. It was subtle influence at work. This is the essence of subtle influence. Instead of overpowering emotion, you name it. Instead of directing behavior, you shift the room by shifting yourself. Your energy becomes the thermostat, and when people feel that steadiness, they adjust automatically. This doesn't mean you become passive. Subtle influence is not weakness. It is restraint. It is power held with grace. It is knowing you can speak, but choosing to listen first. To develop this, you must first master your inner dialogue. Every moment you walk into a room thinking, how do I win? You've already lost the chance to influence. But if you walk in thinking, how can I serve this moment with clarity? You are already leading. People can feel when your intention is pure. They can feel when your words come from presence, not performance. Subtle influence also requires self-trust. You must believe that your presence matters, even when you are silent. That your stillness can shift the atmosphere, and that your decision to not speak is as powerful as your decision to speak. This is where real confidence is born, not in dominance but in discretion. You begin to trust that the right people hear you even when you whisper, and that the right hearts shift even when you don't instruct. Your life itself becomes a message, not your marketing. You become a living example, not just a clever communicator. And in that space, your influence expands without effort. Start this practice today. The next time you feel the urge to convince, slow down and ask a question instead. The next time someone is heated, lower your voice. The next time you want to be heard, offer to hear more. You will see the shift immediately. People will begin to relax, listen, and open up. That is subtle influence at work. And once you develop it, you will never need to chase influence again. In every conversation, there's an invisible rhythm, much like a piece of music with its high notes, crescendos, and quiet pauses. The socially intelligent person doesn't just speak while listening. They tune into this rhythm. They know when to enter a conversation and when to wait, when to give words and when to give space, becoming masters of timing. This mastery, more than talent or volume, determines the impact of their words. You felt this before, even if you couldn't name it. A moment when someone said exactly what you needed, exactly when you needed it. Their words landed perfectly, not because they were flawless, but because they were timely. The same words spoken earlier or later might have been ignored, but in that precise moment they became medicine. This is the sacred art of timing in communication, and it's born from awareness, not luck. It's about sensing the emotional climate, watching for shifts in body language, breath, and eyes, and recognizing when people are truly open to receiving what you have to say. The mistake most people make is believing that being heard is about speaking louder or longer. They rush to fill every silence and interrupt with urgency, but truth delivered at the wrong time can be more damaging than silence. Wrong time can be more damaging than silence. A truth spoken without permission is a violation. On the other hand, silence, when held with presence, is a profound form of respect. It says, I am here. I am listening. I am making space for you. In a world overwhelmed with noise, your silence becomes a sanctuary where others can finally hear themselves more clearly. However, silence can also be misused. Some people stay silent out of fear, not wisdom, avoiding conflict and withholding truth until resentment festers. That's not social intelligence. That's emotional self-abandonment. The true skill is knowing when to speak, and when you do, to speak with clarity, not clutter. There's a moment in every interaction when a door opens. A person's guard lowers and their breath deepens, and that's your invitation to speak. You don't need to rush. You can trust that the right moment will come, and when it does, your words will land with impact. I remember a friend who was in a dark place and snapping at everyone. Everyone tried to talk to him, to reason with him, to fix him, but nothing worked. I chose silence, staying close but saying little, and I let him vent for days. Then one night he finally broke down and asked me, "Can you help me figure it out?" That was the door, and when I spoke, it wasn't an instruction. It was an embrace in the form of words. This is the power of restraint. When you don't rush to speak, your silence becomes an offering, and people will fill it with their truth. On the other hand, there are moments when silence is dangerous, when someone needs truth and you withhold it, or when something harmful is happening and you say nothing. Social intelligence requires discernment. It means asking, what does this moment truly need from? If the answer is courage, then you must speak, even if your voice shakes. But you must speak with love, not ego. The best words are lanterns, not weapons. They light the way and must be held gently. One of the greatest skills you can develop is knowing how to pause. That single second before responding changes everything. It allows your truth to catch up to your tongue and gives the moment a chance to breathe. In that pause, you can ask yourself if your words will bring clarity or confusion, peace or pressure. If the answer is pain, you wait and return to your center before you speak. Your words will carry more weight because they will come from your wholeness, not your wound. When you listen this way, deeply and patiently, you will also begin to hear the unsaid. You'll know when someone needs silence more than speech and feel the emotional weight in their breath. So many relationships break not from what was said, but from what was not. The apology never spoken, the truth dodged, or the affection assumed but not expressed. You must learn to speak when it matters and, just as importantly, to stay silent with reverence. Because when you learn the rhythm of conversation, your voice becomes sacred, not loud, not constant, but unforgettable. Every person carries a history into every conversation, And what you say, however simple, is filtered through their past experiences and pain. This means that unless you learn to sense the triggers that live beneath their reactions, you'll spend your life stepping on emotional landmines, wondering why a conversation suddenly exploded when all you did was speak. To be socially intelligent is to become a reader of tension and a student of subtle shifts, noticing when a smile falters or a joke lands wrong. You have to understand that people aren't always reacting to you. They're reacting to a memory you accidentally activated. When you become aware of this, you stop taking things personally and start taking them seriously with empathy, not ego. Emotional landmines are old wounds wrapped in new words. Someone might hear criticism where you meant concern or feel abandoned in your busyness. You didn't mean it, but something in your energy brushed against a bruise they have carried for years. If you don't notice the shift, you'll miss the moment for real connection, because what they need is not a rebuttal but recognition. This is why arguments often spiral into confusion. The issue is no longer what's being said, but what's being felt. Logic becomes useless, and repeating your point makes it worse because emotion is now driving the interaction. Social intelligence means stepping off that ride before it crashes, by pausing to ask, what just happened beneath the surface? Instead of, how do I win this? You must understand that everyone has trigger points, words or moments that carry more weight than they should, because they are echoes of the past. For example, a person who was never heard as a child might overreact when interrupted, while someone who felt abandoned might panic when you need space. Their behavior may not be logical, but it is always telling. If you respond with defensiveness, the trigger deepens, but if you respond with curiosity, the energy softens. You don't say, you're overreacting. You say, this seems to have touched something deeper. Can we talk about it? This shift from confrontation to compassion can open doors that have been locked for decades. This is the gift you can offer others, not just to avoid their triggers, but to honor the parts of them that are still healing. This doesn't mean you walk on eggshells. It means you walk with awareness and speak with intention. The importance of self-awareness in navigating triggers. This also means doing your own inner work, because you have triggers too. Maybe it's being ignored, criticized, or feeling controlled. If you are unaware of your own triggers, they will hijack your presence, causing you to snap back or withdraw, not because of what was said, but because of what was felt. To lead others emotionally, you must first lead yourself. You can sit with your reactions, trace them, and ask, when have I felt this before? What part of me is still trying to protect itself? This self-awareness becomes your armor, grounding you instead of guarding you. Now, instead of reacting, you can respond. Instead of defending, you can dialogue. You become safe not only for others, but also for yourself. As you grow in this awareness, your relationships will transform. People will feel more free around you, less afraid to be human. They will know they can make mistakes and not be punished for them, because you have learned to separate the behavior from the being, to see the fear beneath the fight and the hurt beneath the hardness. In time, you will begin to notice triggers before they explode. You will feel the tension in the air and sense when someone's voice tightens. You will pause, breathe, and choose words that soothe, not spike. You will guide the moment instead of reacting to it. This is the height of social intelligence, not to manipulate, but to minister, not to overpower, but to understand. The world will feel softer and safer, not because everyone has changed, but because you have. You carry less offense, offer more space, and respond with depth, not just dialogue. And in that you become rare, because few know how to dance around emotional landmines with grace. You, however, will know not to avoid but to disarm, not to escape but to heal. That is the quiet superpower of the socially aware. In every room there is an emotional anchor, a person others unconsciously lean on when things get tense. They remain grounded, not passive. When voices rise or anxiety spreads, they are the ones others feel safe around, not because they are the loudest, but because they are the most present and composed. This role is not given by a position of authority. It's a presence earned by mastery. The world is filled with reactivity, and rooms often sway with the strongest emotion present. One person's anxiety can become contagious, or one person's anger can set off a chain reaction, making the environment unstable. The emotional anchor, however, can steady the boat. They restore order, calm nerves, and create clarity simply by being. This mastery begins within. You cannot anchor others if you are not anchored in yourself. You must first become aware of your own emotional patterns, such as whether you get pulled into panic or take on guilt from others. A powerful tool for this is the pause, that sacred breath before you respond. In that breath, you reconnect and remember that your job is not to match the noise, but to bring the silence that heals it. While most people believe reacting quickly shows leadership, the emotional anchor knows better. They fight urgency not with urgency, but with stillness, slowing everything down so truth can breathe. The emotional anchor is not detached. They are deeply engaged, but their engagement is clean. They don't take on others' emotional burdens as their own or rescue them. Instead, they reflect, hold space, and offer clarity and strength, not noise or solutions. This strength comes from depth, not dominance. I recall a moment in a heated meeting where people were shouting and blaming one another. In the middle of it, one person remained still and quiet. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, but it changed the room. "Can we all take one breath together?" The room went silent. The trance of reactivity was broken and a dialogue began. She had anchored the room not with authority, but with presence. You can become that person not just in boardrooms, but in your family and friendships. This requires practice, choosing presence over performance and stillness over speed. The more you anchor others, the more anchored you become. Your tolerance for emotional complexity will increase, and you will stop fearing intense moments, meeting them with maturity and breath instead. You will walk into rooms not needing attention, but offering stability, and people will feel better just by being around you. This role, however, also comes with responsibility. You must protect your peace, guard your energy, and refuel regularly. Do not neglect your own needs while tending to others. Anchoring others doesn't mean losing yourself. You are not here to fix everyone. You are here to remind them they are not broken, and to be the quiet center from which peace can ripple. This is not just a skill. It is a legacy. There's a moment in almost every difficult conversation where you say something true and a wall goes up. The other person pulls back, their body tenses and their tone sharpens. The defense has been triggered. If you push harder, if you double down or chase them into that fortress of resistance, the connection breaks and trust is lost. You may wonder what went wrong, thinking you were just being honest. But honesty without awareness isn't courage. It's clumsiness. To be socially intelligent, you must not only speak the truth, but also know how and when to speak it. People don't resist truth itself. They resist the way it's delivered when it feels like a threat. Defensiveness isn't a sign of arrogance. It's a signal of fear. When someone becomes defensive, they aren't fighting you. They're protecting a wound. And if you want to create a real connection, you must learn to speak in a way that gently holds that wound, rather than pressing on it. This is the art of disarming, and it's a form of emotional wisdom. It's about knowing that truth, when wrapped in empathy, enters the heart. But when wrapped in pressure or pride, it triggers protection. The goal isn't to avoid hard conversations, but to create conditions where the other person can stay open during them. You can disarm someone by starting with your own intention. Ask yourself, am I speaking to prove something or to invite something? The difference is subtle but powerful. Your tone is everything. You can say, "I need to talk to you," in a way that sounds like a threat or an offering. Socially intelligent people know how to soften their edges without losing their strength, speaking with firmness and kindness, but never aggression. You can also disarm by simply naming the moment. When someone starts to shut down, you can say, "I feel like I might have said something that made you uncomfortable. Can we pause and check in?" This breaks the automatic pattern of defense and shows that you're there to understand, not to fight. The worst thing you can do when someone gets defensive is mirror their tension. If you stay grounded, calm, and curious, you create an energetic invitation that says, "You are safe. You can stay with me." This allows them to lower their shield and re-engage with the conversation. I once worked with a manager who struggled with team feedback. Every time she received input, she would interrupt and defend herself. Her team, in turn, protected her ego by withholding their truth. She said she wanted honesty, but her tone and posture communicated, "I cannot be wrong." We practiced softening her tone, pausing, and asking questions. Within weeks, her team began to open up, not because she lowered her standards, but because she raised her presence. She learned that safety isn't about being nice. It's about being receptive. To disarm others, you must first disarm yourself. Let go of the need to be right or the instinct to defend. You must choose relationship over ego, curiosity over pride, and presence over performance. This doesn't mean you tolerate disrespect. It means you lead the moment with grace, instead of matching its chaos. Sometimes disarming is as simple as owning your impact, saying, "I see how that landed," instead of, "I didn't mean it." That single sentence can diffuse years of resentment because people need you to care, not to be perfect. You can practice this today. The next time someone reacts, pause and ask yourself, what are they really defending? Respond to that, not just their words. If you feel tension rising, soften your voice and slow your breath. Remember, the goal isn't to win. It is to connect. Over time, you'll become the person others feel safe to open up to, trusting you with truths they hide from others. This is emotional leadership, and the world needs more of it. True social power isn't what most people think it is. It's not loud. It's not a title, a salary, or a stage. True social power is quiet. It's the ability to walk into a room and influence the energy without demanding anything. It's presence without pressure, confidence without arrogance, and leadership without domination. Most importantly, it's the ability to remain yourself even when others are trying to shape you into something else. When people misunderstand power and chase it from a place of insecurity, they become dangerous. They resort to manipulation and confuse intimidation with influence. This behavior eventually erodes their relationships because people stop feeling safe in their presence. To be socially intelligent is to hold power with humility, understanding that the emotional climate you create is your truest form of leadership, not your credentials or arguments. The first step to holding power with humility is understanding its true currency, trust, not fear. Trust is what makes others listen to you, follow you, and open up to you. And trust is built through consistency, how you show up when no one is watching, how you treat those who have nothing to offer you, and how you speak when it's inconvenient to be kind. You must also become aware of how you respond to power, both your own and others. Do you shrink when someone authoritative enters a room, or do you overcompensate when you feel invisible? These reactions are signs that your relationship with power is wounded. You don't need to reject power, but you must redefine it. Real power doesn't make people feel small. It makes them feel seen. It invites contribution and uplifts voices. It does not seek the spotlight. It becomes the light. I once met a woman with no formal position, yet she commanded respect in every room she entered. People listened to her not because they were obligated, but because they felt invited. She remembered names, noticed body language, and could sense when someone felt unheard, redirecting the conversation to include them. Her power was not her volume. It was her vision, and it was undeniable. You can cultivate that kind of power, but it requires deep self-awareness. You must know who you are without the applause or recognition, rooting your identity in something deeper than social approval. The moment you chase validation, you lose influence because people trust those who are anchored, not those who are constantly shifting to be liked. Navigating social power also means knowing how to share it. When someone else is shining, do you feel threatened or inspired? A socially mature person celebrates power in others because they are secure in their own, and their power grows not by addition, but by multiplication. However, you must also guard your energy. because power attracts projection. As you become more socially aware, some people may confuse your calm for arrogance or your high standards for judgment. Don't shrink to meet their misunderstanding. Stay grounded and kind, but stay clear. Your job is not to be liked. It is to be real and to carry power in a way that heals, not harms. Remember, social power is not about control. It is about choice. It's the choice to stay present when others panic, to listen when others shout, and to rise without stepping on anyone. It's a declaration of who you are becoming. The man who dominated a panel with his loud, clever remarks was silenced by a woman who said, "When your power needs to be proven, it is not yet secure." The room went still, and you could feel the weight of her words. She did not raise her voice, but she raised the room. That is the power I want for you. Power that doesn't need to convince and influence, and that is felt, not forced. You already have the seed of that power in your integrity and your calm. You don't need to become louder. You need to become clear. Because when you learn to carry social power without losing your soul, you don't just change rooms, you change lives. Most people think that to be a great conversationalist, you need to be a great talker. But the truth is, the most magnetic people are masters of the most overlooked social skill, asking powerful questions. They understand that a conversation isn't a performance, it's an exploration. And the person who asks the best questions is the one who holds the map. Powerful questions are a key tool for connection and influence. They have the power to open doors, reveal deeper truths, and elevate a conversation from shallow to profound. Instead of asking generic questions that lead to one-word answers, magnetic people use questions to invite others into a deeper dialogue. They understand that every person has a story and a desire to be seen and heard. By asking the right questions, you are giving someone the space and the permission to share their truth. Think about the last time you were asked a truly thoughtful question. You likely felt a sense of respect, a feeling that your thoughts and experiences genuinely mattered to the other person. This is because powerful questions show that you're not just waiting for your turn to speak. You're genuinely interested in understanding another person's world. This kind of curiosity is rare and therefore incredibly magnetic. In a world full of noise, most people are just broadcasting their own thoughts and opinions. But when you ask a question and then truly listen to the answer, you become a sanctuary in the chaos. You become someone who creates connection instead of just noise. Powerful questions are not an interrogation. They are an invitation. They are a sign of respect and a tool for creating a shared experience. To master this skill, you need to shift your focus from what you want to say to what you want to learn. You must stop preparing your responses and start preparing yourself to be present. It's in that state of curious and non-judgmental listening that the best questions naturally arise. You'll find that your questions will become less about facts and more about feelings, less about information and more about meaning. And in that shift, you'll discover a deeper, more authentic connection that makes you unforgettable. This chapter is a deeper dive into active listening, moving beyond the physical act of hearing to the profound skill of sensing. Most people think listening is a passive activity where you simply wait for your turn to speak. But true listening is a dynamic and engaged act of attention. It is the core of social intelligence, a skill that allows you to hear the unsaid and feel the unseen. The socially intelligent person understands that every conversation has multiple layers. The first layer is the words, the literal message being communicated. The second layer is the emotions behind the words, such as frustration, joy, or sadness. The third and most important layer is the unmet need that is driving the emotion. Most people only engage with the first layer, but masters attune themselves to all three. For example, when a child says, "You never play with me," they aren't just expressing anger. They are communicating a deeper need for connection and attention. By hearing this unmet need, you can transform the moment from a potential conflict into an opportunity for true connection. To truly listen, you must first quiet your inner world. This means dropping your ego and the need to fix, impress, or be right. It means resisting the urge to formulate your response and instead focusing on receiving the other person's message with your entire being. This creates a safe space for them to open up and be vulnerable. When they feel heard, they feel validated, and that is a powerful connector. This form of listening is a form of love. It tells the other person, without words, that their thoughts and feelings are worth your full attention. It is the difference between a friend who just nods and a friend who truly sees you. The socially intelligent person doesn't just hear the words. They feel the rhythm, tone, and tension of the conversation. Ultimately, listening beyond words is about shifting your approach from a transactional mindset to one of genuine curiosity and care. It's about remembering that every person is a universe of stories, and most are walking around hoping someone will ask for a tour. You don't need to understand everything about them. You just need to be curious enough to care. This powerful habit will not only deepen your relationships, but also lead you to a deeper understanding of yourself. It reminds you that connection is built not by brilliance, but by simply being present. Social intelligence is the ability to read the invisible and respond with intention. This isn't about being inauthentic, but rather about learning to adjust your approach to resonate with others. It's what the script calls social calibration, the practical moment-to-moment skill of fine-tuning your energy, tone, and approach to connect more effectively. It is not an act of manipulation, but an act of respect in action. Imagine trying to speak to a grieving friend with the same energy you'd use for a hopeful client. The disconnect would be obvious and damaging. Calibration is essentially respect in action. It acknowledges that you see another person enough to meet them where they are emotionally, rather than forcing them to meet you where you are. This skill allows you to move from social blindness to clarity, helping you stop reacting and start responding consciously. Mastering social calibration requires you to be attuned to the subtle shifts in any interaction. You need to notice the flicker in someone's eyes, the way they shift in their seat, or the pause after a sentence. The socially intelligent person responds to these signals with intention, not impulse. They don't rush to fill silences or overpower others to feel powerful. Instead, they move with a quiet confidence that says, "I see you, and I am adjusting my approach to honor your presence." This skill is a form of respect in action. It's the difference between a clumsy interaction and a graceful one. For example, you wouldn't challenge a withdrawn teenager in the same way you would a confident peer. Social calibration is all about adjusting your approach to match the emotional climate of a given situation. When you begin to live with this level of perception, your social world transforms. You stop fearing conversations and instead anticipate them with curiosity. Ultimately, this is a path to profound connection, not a trick to win friends. When you learn to calibrate your presence, you become the person others seek for clarity and grounding. You no longer chase validation because you have the quiet strength that comes from knowing you can meet people where they are. It's about becoming more of yourself without fear, and the more aligned you are, the more effortlessly you'll connect with others. Social intelligence is often seen as a skill for understanding others, but at its core it's a pathway to deeper self-awareness. Every interaction you have is a mirror, reflecting something about yourself that you may not have noticed before. The lesson is how to use these reflections to drop your ego, confront your own biases, and become more grounded and authentic in your presence. Most people are socially blind because they're focused on being heard or being impressive, rather than on being present and sensing the reality of the situation. They miss the subtle cues that reveal what's truly going on beneath the surface of a conversation. But when you start to pay attention to others, you also start to see yourself more clearly. You notice your need to dominate, your fear of rejection, or your discomfort with silence as they are reflected in the reactions of the people around you. Every conversation becomes a classroom when you're willing to learn, and in every interaction, people are reflecting back something about you. To move from social blindness to clarity, you must be willing to drop the ego and replace pride with curiosity. This is how you begin to see not only others clearly, but also yourself without distortion. This process requires stillness and reflection after each encounter, asking yourself questions like, what was really going on there? What did I miss? Where did I react instead of respond? Over time, these questions sharpen your perception and turn the blur of social life into a high-definition canvas. You begin to spot emotional shifts the way a musician hears subtle changes in pitch. And once that skill is developed, it's irreversible. This journey isn't about being perfect. It's about becoming more authentic. The most magnetic people aren't the most flawless ones. They're the most real. When you embrace vulnerability and let people see the real you, flaws and all, you give them a gift. This honesty is magnetic and creates a safe space for others to be themselves as well. When you are aligned with your own worth, you don't need to chase anyone because the right people will find you. Ultimately, this is a path to profound connection, not a trick to win friends. When you learn to calibrate your presence, you become the person others seek for clarity and grounding. You no longer chase validation because you have the quiet strength that comes from knowing you can meet people where they are. It's about becoming more of yourself without fear, and the more aligned you are, the more effortlessly you'll connect with others. Becoming a social master isn't about being a sponge that soaks up every emotion in the room. It's about learning the crucial skill of balancing empathy with discernment. Many people fall into the trap of becoming overly empathetic, where they feel so deeply for others that they lose their own emotional center. This can lead to taking on other people's burdens, feeling drained, or even being manipulated by those who sense your emotional vulnerability. Social intelligence is not about sacrificing yourself. It's about being able to see a situation clearly and respond with compassion without losing your grounding. True empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others without making those feelings your own. It's the difference between saying, I understand why you're sad, and saying, I'm sad because you're sad. The former is a position of strength and clarity, while the latter is a position of emotional entanglement. Highly successful people practice a form of empathetic detachment. They can step into someone's emotional world to understand their story, but they know how to step back out and maintain their own integrity and energy. This balance is what allows you to set healthy boundaries without feeling guilty. You can be the compassionate listener for a friend who's venting, but you don't have to carry their frustration with you all day. You can be supportive of a colleague's struggles, but you don't have to let their stress disrupt your own focus and work. Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're guidelines that protect your emotional well-being and allow you to show up with a full cup rather than an empty one. The key to this balance is in your intention. Are you listening to help, or are you listening to rescue? Rescuing is often an act of ego, a way to feel important and needed. But this behavior often enables others and exhausts you. True help is empowering. It involves giving someone your presence, your perspective, and your support, but allowing them to own their own emotional journey and find their own solutions. This approach fosters resilience in both you and the other person. To cultivate this balance, practice self-awareness in your interactions. Self-awareness in your interactions. When someone shares an intense emotion, notice if you feel yourself getting pulled into their storm. Take a moment to pause and breathe before responding. Ask yourself, what is mine to feel here and what is theirs? By practicing this, you train your mind to be a lighthouse in the storm, not a boat that gets tossed about. This silent habit may not be glamorous, but it is the foundation of emotional power and an essential skill for anyone who wants to connect deeply without getting lost in the process. The silent strength of discernment in every relationship. You have to decide who deserves your full emotional investment and who doesn't. This isn't a heartless or cynical act. It's a strategic one. Discernment is the quiet wisdom of recognizing when a person's behavior is a call for help versus a pattern of emotional dumping. It's understanding that you can be kind to everyone, but that you cannot be emotionally available to everyone. Successful people use this discernment to protect their most valuable resource, their time and energy. They surround themselves with people whose presence lifts them up, not drains them down. This is not about being exclusive. It's about being intentional. It's about building a strong inner circle that reflects the values of trust, reciprocity, and mutual respect. When you have discernment, you don't waste energy on toxic dynamics or relationships that serve only one person. You can start to develop this skill by practicing in your daily life. When a conversation turns negative, notice your urge to fix it or to commiserate. Instead, try to shift the topic or politely excuse yourself. This doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a wise one. It sends a signal that your emotional space is valuable and that you will not let it be filled with noise that serves no purpose. Ultimately, the empathy-discernment balance is about cultivating a heart that is open but not unprotected. It's a way of being that allows you to be deeply present for others without losing yourself in the process. When you master this, you become a source of strength for those around you because you are grounded, not swaying with every emotional wind that blows. This is the mark of a truly mature and powerful social master. To thrive in any environment, you must master the art of building and maintaining authentic, meaningful relationships. This fundamental skill is a strong predictor of success, happiness, and overall well-being in both personal and professional life. The foundation of these relationships is trust, and it's built not with grand gestures, but through consistency, competence, and care. For instance, people trust Warren Buffett because his reputation for honest communication and reliable performance has been demonstrated consistently over decades. The process of creating meaningful connections goes beyond surface-level interactions. Research shows that it takes around 7 hours of meaningful interaction to build a close friendship. These connections are cultivated by turning toward bids for connection, which are small moments when someone reaches out with a concern, excitement, or a request for support. A great example of this is Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign, which succeeded in part because she built genuine connections with communities by listening to people's stories and sharing her own experiences as a mother. Strategic networking and boundaries. Successful networking isn't about collecting business cards. It's about building genuine relationships. Adam Grant's research found that the most successful networkers are givers who focus on helping others rather than what they can get. This approach creates a cycle of positive reciprocity that builds stronger, more sustainable networks. A structured approach to networking, such as the 3-3-3 method, can help you transform casual connections into meaningful relationships. The method involves reflecting on how to add value for 3 minutes before an interaction, creating 3 meaningful touch points during the conversation, and following up within 3 days. Maintaining long-term relationships requires consistent effort. Research from the University of Kansas shows that it takes about 50 hours of interaction to become a casual friend, 90 hours for a real friend, and 200 hours for a close friend. This highlights the importance of investing time and energy in the relationships you value. Oprah Winfrey and her friendship with Gayle King, spanning over 40 years, is a great example of this, demonstrating the power of consistent support, honest communication, and shared values. Establishing healthy boundaries is also crucial. Boundaries aren't walls that keep people out. They're guidelines that help relationships flourish. People who maintain clear professional and personal boundaries report 37% higher satisfaction in their relationships. Repairing relationships and building support, even damaged relationships, can be mended. Research from the Gottman Institute shows that successful relationship repair isn't about avoiding conflict, but about how you handle it. The magic ratio for a healthy relationship is 5 positive interactions for every 1 negative one. The fierce rivalry and conflicts between Bill Gates and Steve Jobs are a good example of this. Despite their differences, they repaired their relationship later in life. Developing a strong social support system is like creating your own personal board of directors. People with strong support systems are 70% more likely to cope successfully with major life challenges. A robust support system should be diverse, including mentors, peers, friends, and family, who offer different perspectives. The key to building this system lies in reciprocity and authenticity. Ultimately, building relationships is an art and a science that requires patience, intentionality, and genuine care. The investment you make in relationships today will compound over time, creating a network of support, opportunity, and fulfillment. The digital age has completely redefined how we connect, communicate, and build relationships. In a world shaped by social media and virtual communities, mastering digital social intelligence is a crucial skill. This chapter is a guide to navigating the unique challenges and opportunities of online interactions, from managing your digital footprint to practicing digital empathy. Navigating online interactions with purpose, unlike face-to-face conversations, where body language and tone guide our understanding. Online interactions often rely heavily on written words, emojis, and images. This shift requires us to be acutely aware of how a message might be misinterpreted. For example, a light-hearted comment might come across as dismissive if the tone is unclear. Adopting a clear and thoughtful communication style can prevent misunderstandings and build trust. Social media platforms are designed to capture attention and engagement, often amplifying curated realities and creating a sense of comparison where people measure their worth against the carefully presented highlights of others' lives. By recognizing this, you can approach social media with a balanced mindset, focusing on genuine connection rather than competition. A purpose-driven approach, such as using platforms to celebrate achievements or support causes, is a great way to do this. Building virtual relationships and your digital presence. Digital communication etiquette is the foundation of meaningful online interactions. The rules, though adapted for the medium, are still rooted in respect and consideration. For example, sending a work-related message late at night can unintentionally create stress for the recipient. Being mindful of these nuances ensures your digital interactions are constructive and positive. Building virtual relationships require authenticity and consistent effort, just like face-to-face connections. A great example is a remote team leader who, despite never meeting their colleagues in person, fostered a sense of camaraderie through regular check-ins and personalized messages, proving that meaningful virtual relationships are impactful. Your digital footprint, which includes your social media profiles and public comments, shapes how others perceive you. Curating this presence with intention is essential for aligning with your personal and professional goals. A job seeker, for instance, might optimize their LinkedIn profile to highlight their skills, while being conscious of privacy settings can protect your security. Digital empathy and avoiding pitfalls. Digital empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others in virtual spaces. In a world where online discussions can easily turn into conflict, empathy acts as a bridge to meaningful dialogue. This involves reading between the lines of text-based communication, recognizing emotional cues, and responding with kindness. An influencer who chose to respond to critical comments by acknowledging the concerns raised, for example, can turn a potential conflict into a constructive exchange. Avoiding common digital pitfalls requires awareness and proactive strategies. Oversharing personal details, engaging in heated debates, or falling for misinformation can undermine your online experience. For instance, a quick fact-check before sharing an article reinforces your credibility as a responsible digital communicator. Resisting the urge to engage in arguments with strangers online also protects your energy and keeps interactions constructive. The digital world is a tool, and its value lies in how you use it. By mastering digital social intelligence, You not only enhance your ability to connect, but also contribute to a healthier online community. Your digital footprint is a reflection of your values and intentions. Use it wisely to build a future that aligns with your best self. The professional world is as much about people as it is about performance. At every level, social intelligence plays a critical role in navigating workplace relationships, fostering collaboration, leading teams, and building networks. Whether you're just starting your career or already established, honing your ability to connect, empathize, and communicate effectively can be the difference between mediocrity and extraordinary success. Research consistently shows that emotional and social intelligence are strong predictors of career success, sometimes even surpassing technical skills in importance. Building foundational workplace relationships are the foundation of professional success. They require mutual respect, trust, and effective communication. For instance, a manager who takes the time to understand their team members' strengths and aspirations not only fosters a positive work environment, but also unlocks greater productivity and engagement. Investing in these connections, whether with peers, subordinates, or supervisors, pays dividends in collaboration and morale. Team dynamics and collaboration highlight the importance of understanding group behavior and leveraging diversity. Teams that excel are those where members feel psychologically safe. This means they can voice opinions and take risks without fear of judgment. Google's Project Aristotle revealed that psychological safety was the most significant factor in team effectiveness, even more than individual talent. Developing this sense of safety starts with fostering inclusivity, respecting different viewpoints, and encouraging open dialogue. Leadership, negotiation, and career advancement. Leadership and social intelligence go hand in hand. Great leaders inspire, motivate, and influence through their understanding of people. They listen more than they speak, empower others, and lead with empathy and clarity. Nelson Mandela is a prime example, having demonstrated exceptional social intelligence in uniting a divided nation. His ability to connect with diverse groups and build bridges across divides made him a transformative leader. Whether you're in a formal leadership position or leading informally, your social intelligence is your greatest asset. Client and stakeholder management is another area where social intelligence is indispensable. A sales executive who genuinely listens to a client's needs and builds rapport is far more effective than one who relies solely on a scripted pitch. Understanding the motivations and concerns of stakeholders allows you to address their expectations and foster long-term partnerships. Professional networking is not just about exchanging business cards or adding connections on social media. It's about cultivating meaningful relationships based on mutual value and respect. Networking is a long-term investment that requires authenticity and consistent effort. Howard Schultz, the former CEO of Starbucks, attributes much of his success to the relationships he built throughout his career. Your network is one of your most valuable resources, offering support, opportunities, and insights. Negotiation skills are a cornerstone of professional social intelligence. Effective negotiators understand not just their own position, but also the needs and motivations of the other party. They seek win-win outcomes that foster trust and long-term relationships. President Jimmy Carter's ability to mediate the Camp David Accords was rooted in empathy, understanding, and clear communication. Career advancement is a natural outcome of mastering these elements. Employers value individuals who can lead, communicate, and collaborate effectively beyond technical expertise. Your ability to navigate relationships, handle conflicts, and inspire others is what sets you apart. The path to professional success is paved with the relationships you build, the trust you earn, and the positive impact you create. A lifelong journey. Social intelligence isn't a fixed trait, but a skill that can be developed with intention and practice. Each interaction, challenge, and opportunity to connect is a chance to refine your ability to understand and relate to others. Your ability to connect with others, authentically and strategically, is one of your most powerful tools in building a fulfilling and impactful career. Everything you've heard so far is meaningless if it remains an idea you admire rather than a standard you embody. Social intelligence, trust, power, and empathy aren't things you understand by simply thinking about them. They are things you become by living them. The ultimate question isn't whether you know what to do, but whether you will choose to do it, even when it's uncomfortable, when no one is watching, and when it costs you something you once thought you couldn't give up. Transformation doesn't happen in a single, dramatic moment. It happens in quiet, consistent decisions. It's the moment you choose to listen with empathy instead of planning your response, or the day you decide to communicate with integrity rather than manipulation. These choices may seem small, but they are the tectonic shifts that move everything else. Once they begin, there is no going back to the person you used to be, not because you can't, but because you finally refuse to. If you truly want to master social intelligence, you must let go of the illusion that someone is coming to save you. No book, no mentor, no philosophy can carry you across the finish line. They can point the way, but only you can walk it. Influence begins the moment you stop performing for the world and start becoming the kind of person whose presence itself is a message. When you embody what you value so fully that others feel stronger just by being near you, you no longer need to chase power. You become it. Maya Angelou's timeless wisdom captures the essence of this journey. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. This wisdom reminds us that social intelligence isn't about what we do or achieve, but about the impact we leave on others. It's a pathway to creating a legacy of connection, understanding, and positive change. This is your call to action. Step into every interaction with intention, integrity, and the desire to make a difference. Use your social intelligence to build bridges, inspire growth, and create a more compassionate and connected world. The journey of mastering social intelligence is lifelong and evolves with every relationship and moment of self-reflection. You have the power to elevate not just yourself, but also those around you. The purpose of advanced social intelligence is to create a positive social impact, leaving the world better than you found it. By mastering the psychology of human behavior, you are not only shaping your own future, but also contributing to a world where empathy and wisdom prevail. Let this be your call to action. Commit to being a force for connection, understanding, and positive change. In mastering the psychology of human behavior, you are not only shaping your own future, but also contributing to a world where empathy and wisdom prevail. Social intelligence is the cornerstone of meaningful connections, effective communication, and the ability to thrive in a complex, interconnected world. Your ability to connect with others authentically and strategically is one of your most powerful tools in building a fulfilling and impactful career.